It's safe to say that we're living in a new psychedelic era. And this time around, we have the internet and creators who are spreading the word of the amazing powers and benefits of psychedelics. Whether it's an inspiring hero's journey or a cautionary tale, people's psychedelic experiences always make for a great story. This video is a list of 10 psychedelic storytellers whose work I admire and respect. I wanted this list to be a mix of names that you probably do know, and throw in a few names you probably don't know, whose channels I think deserve a light shown on them for the great work that they're doing. This is by no means a ranked list of who I think the best is, because every person is gonna relate to one creator more than the other, and I think that's a good thing. I'll just be ranking it by number of subscribers as a way to organize it. So let's dive in and explore the collective consciousness of psychedelic YouTubers. Number one is probably who a lot of you would have guessed it is, the OG of psychedelic YouTube, Adam from Psyched Substance. Adam is truly one of the pioneers of this space. And in his time on YouTube, he's garnered an audience of 2.75 million subscribers, which just goes to show you how much of an appetite there is for this subject. It may be niche, but it's a increasingly large niche. Adam is slightly less active these days, but he still takes people along for journeys in his personal life and his substantive experiences. Regardless of exactly what he's doing right now, I would highly recommend going and checking out his extensive back catalog of videos. Where he really shines are his crazy trip reports, like the one where he turns into a polygonal reptilian on DMT, his harm reduction advice videos, his kind of mad scientist approach, and his street interviews where he goes to festivals and interviews people who are definitely peaking right now. So behind door number 2 is Dakota of Earth. Dakota's also been around for a good while, and he's an extremely articulate dude. His videos focus more on psychedelic spirituality and travel experiences. In a way, travel and psychedelics can be two sides of the same coin. Both can be boundary dissolving, mind opening, and leave you feeling reinvigorated. A lot of his travel videos involve going to spiritual sites like Hindu temples and hanging out with Rastafarians. The great thing about psychedelics is it's really a huge subject, as vast as the mind itself. And all of these different subtopics that are related to psychedelics could take a lifetime to explore. So that's where all of these different YouTubers distinguish themselves, is within the subtopics that are tangentially related to psychedelics. Coming in at number 3 is your mate Tom. So far we've had a Canadian, an American, so now we gotta throw in an Australian. Tom is highly reflective, and his videos feel like you're sitting down with him for deep thought and introspection. He has a candid kind of vibe about him where he speaks bluntly and directly, and you feel like he's not gonna beat around the bush with you. He brings a filmmaker vibe to the psychedelic genre, making mini documentaries, videos about his ceremonies, and reflecting on mental health. He also does trip simulations, travel videos, and podcasts. At number 4, we have none other than Vivec, swinging around the globe once again to the good old UK. Us Americans just love hearing British accents. It almost doesn't even matter what they say. But luckily for us, Vivec has plenty of good things to say, as he's created his channel by reading other people's trip reports and contributing some of his own stories. For a good while, Vivec was actually a faceless channel, which worked out for him fine because he has a very pleasant voice to listen to. It's one of those things you can put on while you're falling asleep. And he could easily be a voice actor. I think he gets his trip reports through submissions and reading them off of Arrowwood. Arrowwood has a really good system of curating high quality trip reports, so you know you're getting stuff that's probably true and stuff that's of a higher quality. Arrowwood's been a resource for psychonauts on the internet for well over a decade now, so it's cool to see some of that stuff get reformatted for YouTube. The good thing about reading other people's trip reports is that you'll never run out of stories. Even as we speak right now, there are probably hundreds of people knee-deep in their psychedelic experience, their stories just waiting to be heard, and hopefully read by Vivec. Check out his channel for great trip reports, his personal thoughts and reflections, and his podcast, The Trip Sitters. Okay, so number 4.5. This isn't officially part of the list, but I did just quickly want to let you know that you're watching Find the Others, and my name is Tyler Saucier. My channel is essentially a place to nerd out about psychedelics in the 21st century and their implications, as Terence McKenna would say. I do trip reports, podcasts picking the brains of brilliant psychonauts, and I make video essays on all of these subtopics that we were talking about, like music and psychedelics, Kundalini, and psychedelic history. The name of the channel is inspired by the Tim Leary quote, "Find the Others." Because as a young psychonaut first getting into this stuff, I felt extremely isolated and even alienated for not having people to share this passion with. So I took to the internet, and thus this channel was born. The internet provides us a great opportunity to connect with like-minded people where we might normally be geographically isolated from them. So check out the channel and feel free to join our Discord server down below. Number 5 is the brilliant Josie Kins. She's also joined by her partner Emily Kins, who contributes to the channel. Josie's whole mission is to systematically document and define each subjective effect that can happen to you while you're tripping. So you'll hear all these terms thrown around like tracers, ego dissolution, entities, etc., but their meaning can kind of be vague and different from person to person. She helped create the Subjective Effects Index, which documents up to 233 of these individual effects and breaking them down into subcategories like visual, cognitive effects, and so on. And I'll put the link for that below. Originally from the UK, she moved over here to America to work for Mind State Design Labs, which, like the name kind of suggests, they're trying to use this knowledge of molecules and subjective effects to be able to tweak the molecules and therefore tweak the experience. So imagine if you could turn up the visuals or turn down the time dilation or something like that. So it's really interesting work, and as you can imagine with a background like that, her videos are pretty interesting. She makes videos like the 6 levels of DMT, why things melt on psychedelics, and the 4 levels of psychedelic geometry. It's really cutting edge stuff that I'm excited about because human beings have been tripping for probably hundreds of thousands of years, but now we're finally on the cusp of having more of an empirical understanding of what's really going on. And we get to live through that time and see it unfold. A lot of mystery remains, but Josie is like one of the lead detectives kind of uncovering and creating the map and the map key with all of the little symbols that explain everything. Here be dragons. Number 6 is Rob, aka Adeptus Psychonautica. He's a very well-spoken, highly opinionated, and adept psychonaut. He specializes in DMT and its preparation. He originally started his channel reviewing ayahuasca centers, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Rob strikes that delicate balance where you're open-minded because you've experienced things that really can't be explained, but you're still rational enough to kind of strike down ideas that are too squirrely or fairy tales. Or in his own words, he likes to remain open-minded, but not so open that the bullshit gets in. He's also been a host of the Psychonautica panel, an online panel of psychedelic YouTube creators and artists who are discussing the important topics of our day. Rob is the internet's favorite psychedelic uncle. For my last few on this list, I want to share some channels that may be a little lesser known, but who I think totally deserve an audience. Number 7 is Chrysantilus. Her YouTube bio describes her page as demystifying and destigmatizing the trip, harm reduction, and education for earth medicines. In addition to psychedelics, she has content on her channel that's about lifestyle and things like Burning Man. She's a super smart person, and the quality of her videos is maximal and colorful. She's carved out a whole lane for herself with the visual experience of her videos. And even with a rainbow exterior, her videos can still really get down to the nuts and bolts of the facts. I often find myself seeing her YouTube video titles and thinking how relatable they are. They're really good ideas with good execution. She also just has one of those super charismatic personalities that make it fun and engaging to watch. I think she has a great future ahead and should absolutely be doing YouTube, but I have noticed she is leaning a little bit more into the short form content lately with TikTok and Instagram. So check her out there too. Let's move on to number 8. This is Jake Knows Nothing, and a lot about his approach can be gathered just from his name alone. Jake shares his reality-bending visionary experiences along with his bewilderment, curiosity, and sometimes straight-up confusion about them. Have you ever had a psychedelic experience where in the following days you feel like somehow the experience is leaking into your daily life, or it's sending you messages of some kind? If you've ever heard Terence McKenna talk about the author PKD, he had these experiences where the line between fiction and reality was becoming increasingly blurred. That's the vibe of a lot of Jake's content, and he really leans into this while maintaining an infectious, bemused, and curious mindset. He has a unique background from him growing up in a cult and working in a hospital, and he often draws from these experiences and perspective. He recently animated a psychedelic cartoon himself, and it was incredible, so I highly recommend that you guys go check out his channel. Number 9. I had to do the Beatles reference for our 9th entry, Kaleidoscope Eyes. She's a down-to-earth psychonaut who loves to get far out. I've always felt a camaraderie with her because we started our channels at around the same exact time, so it feels like we're cut from the same cloth, like we were the same batch of psychedelic YouTubers that the universe decided to produce. Her channel is filled with things like trip reports, stream of conscious monologues about psychedelics, and what it all means. I love her sense of wonder and astonishment, which seems like the appropriate reaction to the wonders of existence, and especially of the psychedelic experience. Like a lot of the people on this list, she maintains an open mindset with a slightly scientific skew. In other words, she's a psychedelic nerd. And I say this as a compliment and a fellow psychedelic nerd. She also finds these adjacent topics that not a lot of these other YouTubers will talk about, like doing math on psychedelics, playing chess, and sexual encounters while tripping. Number 10 for the win is Gabe Hardy from the Launchpad Podcast. A self-described DMT ninja, he has a great energy and enthusiasm around psychedelic experiences, and just the topic as a whole. He infuses it with a childlike sense of wonder that we should all stay in touch with, but sadly, society slowly erodes from us over time. Gabe is super relatable because he's just like you and I. He's just a normal person who's intensely curious and interested in psychedelic experiences and their role in society. He likes to cover some of the novel compounds like psilomethoxin, which allegedly has psilocybin and 5-MeO-DMT, as well as other compounds like Amanita muscaria. He also retells and highlights some of the most famous stories in psychedelic lore, like the guy who ate 30 tabs of acid, or the most famous salvia trip report of all time. His podcast is on YouTube, but a lot of the action can also be found in short-form vertical content on his Instagram and TikTok. One of the common threads that I see with all of these creators is this theme of reducing the stigma around psychedelics. In the last 15 years, we have made a lot of progress. When I had my first life-changing experience on acid, it was in 2011. And I feel like at that time, it was still very much stigmatized. And I didn't really go around telling people, although it was so life-changing that I really just wanted to shout it from the rooftops. That stigma is a result of decades of propaganda and straight-up lies lingering from the disastrous war on drugs. So one great way to destigmatize these things is to just talk openly about it and be like, see, it's normal, even though some really weird shit happens. It's super empowering to be able to say, yes, I've done psychedelics, and it was a profound experience that improved my life in some way. It should be normal to say something like that. After all, it can be so positive, but there's still work to do. And I think a lot of the brilliant creators on this list are a part of that change. Because of the internet, I was able to find out about these people, and I'm lucky to call some of them friends. When I was compiling this list, of course I came across the problem that I couldn't fit everyone onto this list. So if there's any psychedelic YouTubers that you think should be on this list, or I can make another one, put down in the comments what psychedelic YouTube channels that you like to watch and what you like about them. I've done a podcast with nearly half of the people on this list, so on the end screen here you're going to see a playlist of all my podcasts, so you can check that out there. Also, there is the Psychonautica panel that had all of us kind of in one spot at the same time. That's on Rob's second channel, Psychonautica. I'll link that down in the description.